Thank you, Ralph.
Sure. My name is Ralph Petty. I'm a certified business continuity planner. I've been in practice for almost 30 years. I've been through 500 disasters, ranging from earthquakes, floods, power outages. I was in New York City on September 11th. I've got a good perspective of what the business requirements are for business continuity. And I think the most important thing everybody should consider is the fact that we're not alone. Every single business department and every single individual in your companies should be involved somewhere, either as a planner or recipient of plans in the business continuity practice. So I'm delighted to work with the Osaka Group, and I look forward to meeting with anyone that wants to call me and ask me any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think that sets me up for the for the next question actually. So 2020 has been an eye opener for a lot of executives worldwide. It's not just in US or Canada, Australia or Europe. It's been worldwide. A common theme surfaced that executives had no idea what else needs to be prepared other than IT equipment or even service during a disaster. So that brings me to the difference between DRP and BCP. So why don't you enlighten our members, please?
Okay, so for many decades, it was all about disaster recovery, getting systems back, getting telecommunications back, getting processes back, and then all of a sudden it became, oh my goodness, all these resources and tools are critical, but they're actually facilitators of getting the business running. So then we started talking about work area recovery, so people had a place to go, and supply chain planning and building management planning, and that all falls under the genre of business continuity planning, which is really the table and all the other legs, the emergency management, the crisis management, the disaster recovery, any of the other areas are all portions of the overall goal of business continuity. So a true business continuity plan incorporates your entire enterprise risk management program for large companies, for small companies, so that everyone knows what to do in the event of a disaster event. There's no issue. You can act decisively, and everybody will have a happy outcome as long as you follow the plan that you all agreed upon ahead of time.
Yeah, so I think between DRP and BCP, I think a lot of times we have seen that industry uses that interchangeably, and which it shouldn't. So I think if you can just give us one liner, if you would have to differentiate between a DRP and BCP.
Okay. DRP is pretty much what the Osaka folks focus on. Utilities, telecommunications, resources, systems and such. Business continuity is really a little bit beyond that, incorporating the business processes, the applications, and all the different departments of a business to get them all running. The backbone it's always been, and always will be the DRP. But the business continuity really jumps a little bit ahead because it's more of a situation where compliance and regulations and all these things come into play and utilize DRP. So the big difference is the fact that the BCP has DRP, which is invaluable, but the BCP, which means business continuity, means continue the business.
So is continuity planning only for large enterprises, or is it still applicable to small business or small to medium business as well?
Well, the important thing now in the last 10 years or so is that a number of small businesses are getting the right, as they certainly deserve, to come to the table and be a resource for the larger businesses. And many SMB, small and medium-sized businesses, don't have the resources or the time or the inclination, or quite frankly, the understanding of the importance of having a business continuity plan. So the big companies will have a plan, but they may have to give 10% or 5% of their spend to all the minority and the female-owned and all the different special interest groups that are required by law to be a participant in the overall development of a building or a process or whatever it is. So the key is that the small businesses need a place to go. And they're not going to pay $25,000 or $100,000 for a plan. They can find quality plans for $100 a month, $50 a month, and have a plan. And the most important thing to do, Victor, is the fact that you've got someone that has a plan looking at their entire business, maybe for the first time, end to end. And not only are they building a plan in the event that something happens and they have to invoke that plan and respond to a disaster event of any kind, but they're actually getting a chance to optimize their processes and take a step back away from the forest and see the trees and see what they can do to actually prepare either an individual office or an enterprise organization. You take that step back. The little guys have the tools and the resources to be there at the table and be a key partner and supply chain compatriot to some of the larger firms.
So, we talked about the difference between DRP, BCP, then we talked about who does it apply to? Pretty much, I would say everyone.
Right, right.
The last question is importance of testing. I know we will, or we always have procedures in DRP, BCP, and a lot of times I've seen enterprises getting very nervous. So if we talked about testing, hey, can I go? If you tell me that it's a high available system, can I go yank one of it? And they're like, oh no, no, it's production system. And usually my answer to that is, do you really think disaster is going to come and knock on your door and get your approval that may I? It's going to happen. So what's the importance of testing and the procedures of in BCP DRP?
You should test at least once a year your entire end-to-end environment. And sometimes you pick a day like the day after Thanksgiving or Columbus Day, which is kind of a soft holiday where maybe some people are off. It's a state holiday or a federal holiday, but the core people come in and work with their supply chain people. Or on a Saturday, they can use the data from Friday and just replay it on a Saturday without having an impact on the regular weekly production. But the critical thing is to engage all of your people in the recovery process in a testing. Because as Ben Franklin says, if you fail to plan, you're going to plan to fail. And what's going to happen is you've got people that are going to be running around trying to figure out what to do and where to go when the bell rings, when there's a disaster, when they have to be decisive and should know exactly what to do. And this rolls out into the supply chain as well. You have to test with your supply chain partners, be it communication carriers, software vendors, other resources that you may have. And then you go a little bit further. You have to consider your secondary, and if you're really tightening the screws on your planning, you consider your tertiary partners. So if you own a restaurant and you do a test and you're getting milk from a certain dairy locally, you're locally sourcing, even if you're a national chain, you're locally sourcing the dairy products and other resources, and you depend on that organization, you really should have a verifiable backup, someone that understands the importance. So maybe they'll be a little hungry and want to be your key partner instead of your secondary partner. So test with them. You might be surprised to find out they'll be a little more aggressive, a little more enthusiastic, and they'll come through for you. So if your plan A fails, like we always have in our business, we go to plan B. And then I think it's critical because you've tested and you took notes. But one last point, which is critical. If you do a test and you have a 96% success rate, you had a 4% failure rate. So your next test has to key on that 4% first, even way before that test, maybe in the after test report, to make sure that everybody knows that what went wrong, what could be fixed, and how we can get around some of those stumbling blocks.
Awesome, Rob. We look forward to having your full talk at the Orange County chapter in May, and this has been enlightening, so insightful. So we'll definitely look forward to your talk.
Well, I have a passion for this business, and people really have to adopt that word passion and really act with conviction, as I've said a few times, and have those plans because anything can happen and you've got to be ready for anything. So thank you so much. I'm proud to be an Osaka member, and I wish everyone a safe period of time as we move forward. Thank you, Victor.